This unit looks at a very important problem that affects legal writing, the problem of sentence length. What's the problem? Well, it's quite simple. In legal writing, you'll often find that the sentences are long, sometimes very long. Long sentences often lack punctuation or alternatively use lots of punctuation in an attempt to highlight information and guide the reader. In cases of over and underuse, the effect is just the same. You will confuse the reader. Long sentences also contain lots of information and may use confusing structures. Why is this a problem? Well, for a number of reasons. The writer thinks that all the relevant points that he or she wants to make are important, so they all go into one sentence. Too much information is being communicated at once. This is what's called over-particularization. To make everything fit into one sentence, the writer then doesn't use or uses too much punctuation, which then further confuses the sentence, especially when punctuation, or lack of, doesn't follow the established punctuation rules. Also, to get everything to fit, the sentence will contain many clauses and mix different syntax. The effect of all of this is that the reader has to reread the sentence in order to fully understand the message and catch all of the points being made, sometimes having to reread the sentence several times. How many times have you started to read a sentence and after a short while give up, confused, and then have to go all the way back to the beginning to try and work out the information that's being presented? I know it happens to me quite frequently. Well, what's the solution? If you're reading and trying to understand a long sentence, read it and break it down into the number of points it makes. Then try to identify the main point. If you're writing, stick to 1 point per sentence. Another point, another sentence. This creates a simpler sentence structure and communicates your message without it having to be read several times. Also bear in mind sentence length averages. Readability tests tell us that if a sentence goes over 25 words, it becomes more difficult for the reader to follow. Try to keep an overall sentence average of 20 to 25 words. Remember, this is not a rule for every sentence, but the whole document. How? Well, I'll give you a few moments to read the example sentence. This sentence is 64 words long, and in the sentence there are a few pieces of information. The reader has got to digest a lot of information in one go. If a sentence contains multiple points, we know we can break it down. We might be able to break down this sentence like this. The first sentence could be, in respect of liability rules, the lease agreements generally refer to the provisions of the Civil Code. The second sentence could be, the code states the debtor is obliged to redress damages resulting from non-performance or improper performance of the contract. Here we have simple sentence structures using the 1 point per sentence rule. Please note that the language is still formal and professional. It is not baby speak. The third sentence could be, if the debtor is able to prove that the default is not its fault, that is, it has observed due diligence, it is not obliged to redress damages. The third sentence, as you can see, is a conditional. Therefore, it's made up of two clauses. A conditional clause, which is a form of subordinate clause, and a main clause. Legal writing often uses subclauses and main clauses. In this case, the rule is similar. 1 point per clause, a maximum of 2 clauses per sentence. Remember that I mentioned sentence averages? The original sentence was 64 words long. The revised sentences, however, have word counts of 17 words, 19 words, and 28 words. The overall sentence average is then 21 words. The end result is that by using 3 sentences, it's much easier for the reader to understand the message, and it only has to be read once to be understood. To recap, 1. Make only 1 point in the sentence or 1 point in the clause, 2 clauses per sentence. If you have to make a number of points, these should be made in different sentences. It is generally accepted that the average sentence length across the whole document should be between 20 to 25 words. Remember, this is not to say that each individual sentence should be this length. Of course, some will be shorter, some will be longer, but please bear in mind the average across the whole document. Now we know what the problem is, why it is a problem, and how to fix the problem, we can now test the rule by doing the questions below. However, if you're unsure about any of the points which I've made, please go back and watch the video again. Feel free to pause the video to review all the examples at your own speed. After you do a question below, you can click to see a suggested answer. But just before you get started, please note the following. Please read the question and the hint carefully to make sure you complete the questions properly. Don't just get stuck into the questions, read what you have to do first. In the suggested answer, there may also be further comments to a question, so please read these comments carefully. The suggested answers are just that, suggested. There may be other also correct ways to answer each question. I've tried to put in as many variants as I can, but for obvious reasons I can't write every single correct answer. So as long as your answer follows the main points highlighted in the suggested answer, your answer should be okay. The questions are designed to practice the rules in this unit. So although you can make further corrections to the rest of the text based on the other rules in this course, the answer only concentrates on the rule in this unit. And finally, please don't get lost in the legalities of the question text. It's there only to provide material to practice the rule, not to be a law lesson. All that being said, off you go.